Hi, my name's Jen, and this is how I am curing my emetophobia with the Thrive program. I would say I'm probably 75% of the way there now. I still have a few locus control questions to work on and a few avoidance behaviours that I do, but I'm working on them. I first realised I had emetophobia probably when I was about 16. When I was 14, I'd been sick in the middle of the night and I refused to go back to sleep. I was taken to a psychologist and they told me I had OCD because I had compulsions and obsessions. But it wasn't until I was about 16 and I went online that I realised all my compulsions were to do with being sick. I was afraid of germs simply that they'll make me sick. And I discovered what emetophobia was. The doctors had no idea. So fast forward to last year, I was 29 and I probably had one of the worst episodes of my emetophobia that I've had in a long time. I couldn't go to work. I was definitely housebound, and even when I was at home, all I wanted to do was sleep because then I couldn't feel sick. I do have a hiatus hernia and acid reflux disease, which means I do feel sick a lot. So I just couldn't cope. I found out about the Thrive program on an emetophobia forum, which I don't use anymore, and they suggested I try it, considering I'm in the UK and Rob Kelly's in the UK. So I went on the site and I arranged some consultations with Lucy Williamson, worked through the book, and I was able to cure my depression that I was suffering with, and by January of this year I was back at work and able to cope. I was still feeling sick every day, and I still do now, and for a long time I didn't realise I was curing my emetophobia because I would still feel slightly anxious about feeling sick. It wasn't until I realised that someone without emetophobia would feel slightly anxious as well, but it was the fact that I wasn't spending 99% of my time worrying about feeling sick and finding ways to avoid it. It was also when I realised that I had secondary control, and that I could cope with feeling sick and that it wasn't the end of the world, that I realised I was on my way to being cured. Now and again I will still start to go down a spiral of panicking. So I was on a train to London yesterday and I was feeling sick because it was first thing in the morning, which I often do with my stomach issues, and I had to actually stop myself making it worse. What I previously would have done is think, oh, I'm going to be sick because I'm on a train, and then I would have made myself feel more and more sick. Whereas what I've learned from Thrive is that I'm making that nausea worse than it really is. It's just a nuisance. It doesn't make me sick, and even if it did, I would cope. So that is why I believe I'm cured. I think my husband, who very much does not suffer from emetophobia, would also feel a tiny bit anxious being on the train, feeling sick, surrounded by people. So I have notes up around my house, just guidance of what I should be doing with Thrive, and the one I use most is Tolerate. It's just to remind me that when I'm feeling a bit sick or other issues, even like headaches and stuff, that I might not like it, but I can tolerate it, I can cope, I have the secondary control. And I've also learnt that although I might have acid reflux, gastroesophagus reflux disease, that it doesn't control me. I'd let it control me, but because my locus of control is more internal now, I know it's just something that I have that I can cope with, but it doesn't control my life. And that is the same with the emetophobia. Yes, I will feel sick, but it's not going to control my life. It's not going to stop me living. People with much worse diseases carry on living, so why should I let it stop me? So the reason I would say I'm only 75–80% cured is I do still do a lot of safety-seeking behaviours, and I've still got, I think, about 8 locus control questions that I need to work on, but I'm doing that every day, and trying my best to work on the avoidance behaviours. I do still have a few perfectionist traits, but I remind myself when I'm doing them that I shouldn't be. Biggest thing I find is telling myself off. I do that a lot, but I have to then remind myself that it's not my fault I've slipped up or dropped the cat's water on the floor. Doesn't mean I'm an idiot or stupid woman, as I tend to say. No, people make mistakes. So it's been a year since I started the Thrive program, and I wanted to make this to reach out to those that have read it once and haven't cured themselves. It is still possible. I have read it 3 times, and it was probably the 3rd time that I finally worked out what I need to do. The first time it cured my depression, but I was so deep in that depression that I don't think I was able to concentrate properly on working on the emetophobia. The second time I didn't put enough effort into it, so as it says in the program, it's pace, persistent and continuous effort, and I just didn't put that in. So the 3rd time I was determined and I put that in, and that really made the difference. As I said before, I know I have secondary control. Now and again my desire for control rears its ugly head. It's been a big part of my life wanting to control everything, and I didn't really realise how much other traits that I have tied into the emetophobia until I read the Thrive book. But when I do feel this desire for control, when I'm having an acid reflux attack and I just have this strong urge to make myself better right there and then, I remind myself that Thrive has taught me the skills I need to cope, that I have the secondary control, and that it doesn't rule my life. So yeah, I would urge anyone suffering with emetophobia to get the Thrive book, to go through it with a consultant if you can, because it just changes your life. I do actually tell my husband, who has other issues going on, so he'll get depressed now and again. I do tell him certain bits of Thrive that I know will help him. So it's not just applicable to emetophobia, it can work with anything, I would say. So yeah, give it a go.